So this clip has been around the block many times. Recently it turned up on a dashcam group with the title of "Who is at fault?" In the video, a van can be seen colliding with a cyclist. Apparently no one was injured, which of course is the good news, but I thought it would divide opinion a little bit more than it did about who is actually at fault. When I looked at the comments, I did expect this, I suppose, a little bit, but everyone seemed to be saying that the cyclist is at fault. Cyclist, idiot on a bike, etc. went the comments. Now, I put on my response, which I knew would be laughed out of the group, but I'm not on a dashcam group to make friends. I'm there to try and just help spread a little bit of road safety. As I'm finding, that can sometimes be unpopular work. Luckily, I'm unaffected by comments online. I suppose I can see why people do get affected. Doesn't bother me. I don't see that the cyclist would be at fault if this went further than a shake of the hands on the side of the road. Let's explore this, see if you agree with me. First thing to say is that doing something wrong and being at fault are two very different things. You can be found to be not at fault for a collision, and yet you absolutely have done something wrong. Two things struck me about the van's actions. So firstly, essentially by the look of the road, he is traversing around a left-hand bend, and of course there is markings telling him that he should go left. He therefore doesn't see the need to signal, and he also clearly didn't check his mirrors at all or well enough. Either one of those actions would probably have prevented this collision. Now, as I had someone say to me, why on earth would he need to signal to go round a bend? And the answer is here. If we look at the bus, the bus can clearly be seen taking what looks to be a fork in the road, and I imagine this is marked as a bus only turn, and the rest of the traffic has got to go round to the left. But it is somewhere that can be driven. There is no physical barrier stopping the van from driving up that fork. So very likely the van driver thought, it's obvious what I'm doing. And the first proof that it wasn't obvious what he was doing is when the cyclist nearly ends up underneath his wheels. So to anyone that argues it is obvious what he was doing, there's your proof that it wasn't. I would suggest that from the lack of a signal, the cyclist assumes wrongly that the van driver is going to continue in the same direction as the bus, and therefore makes a very poor decision to start moving past the van. Driving over a little bit of paint doesn't always mean that everyone around you knows what you're doing and that they are concentrating properly. A signal is designed not only to inform people where you're going, but also to grab attention. It can wake people up from little zombie moments that they have. Essentially, if you physically could drive another way, then actually a signal can take away any of that confusion. Also, the van driver's mentality. So when I switch to a vehicle that has no center mirror, like a van, that changes what I'm looking for. It changes how often I'm checking my mirrors, because I'm gonna find it harder to spot certain road users. So the attitude of this van driver being, oh, I see less, would have made him more effectively check his mirrors, would have seen the cyclist, may have signaled, and either one of these actions would have easily, and I mean easily, prevented this collision. Now look, the cyclist is more foolish than a man perming his own hair in a power cut, but rule H1 is quite easily one of those things that could be brought against the van driver. When I mentioned this in some comments, I said to the people I was commenting to, I'll wait while you Google rule H1, and then I got no reply. And doesn't that tell you everything? They don't even know it exists. And when they look it up, they start realizing that actually I might be onto something. Rule H1 is of course the hierarchy of road users. Think of it as a food chain, and those that can cause the most damage bear the most responsibility to keep others safe. It is as simple as that. So the van driver showing little or no thought towards this cyclist is not going to go down very well in a courtroom. The van driver shows no real responsibility towards the cyclist, having driven at a low speed for quite some time. If my learners turn without a side mirror check at that point, I'm straight picking them up for that, because there is an increased risk a cyclist is there. So the masses haven't quite yet cottoned on to rules like H1. It does change the way you're driving, and it certainly should be, as it makes you think about where vulnerable road users could be. If you end up in a courtroom situation, a lot of people say things like, oh, the highway code's only advice, but if you look at the DVSA's own words, and this is how I view it, of course, is yes, it is advice, but it's very strong advice that can be used in court against you. So of course, remember the hierarchy, keep other road users safe. If a cyclist makes a mistake and hits a car, you're talking a scratch. If a car driver or a van driver makes a mistake and hits a cyclist, it's potentially a life. And remember, this doesn't mean that the cyclist did nothing wrong, but personally I think it's entirely possible and likely that the van driver here would have been found to be liable if it went any further.